In this video, I want to show you how you can build and grow a virtual software development team for any kind of technology. And I want to show you how you can scale this team with freelancers in a globally distributed team. So software projects are complex, and they are proven that the classical hierarchical waterfall management approach is simply wrong. That's why there is an agile approach called Scrum, and with Scrum you can adapt and make your team adapt to ever-increasing change. So change is part of every software project. If you like it or not, you can't plan a complex software project exactly from the beginning and expect that the result will be exactly as described. You always have a gap, and this gap requires adaptation and constant change. What you need to build your virtual software development team is first having a digital leadership system in place which provides clarity about progress. Usually you can do that, for example, with Asana or Jira, where you can measure different metrics that show the performance of your team. Having no classical hierarchical waterfall approach does not mean you don't have any clarity, you don't have clear goals, and you can't measure progress. The opposite is the case. What you need is metrics that show performance clearly and are able to adapt while change happens. In the classical waterfall approach, we don't have this in place. So Scrum is a good template to build your team on, and Scrum provides clearly defined rules that you can adjust and adapt so that they fit your needs and serve your mission or your goals in the software development team. It is very important to have an agile coach or scrum master in your team. There are many freelancers out there that have these skills. So what it is required that you have an agile coach in your team in the first place that leads the team according to the Scrum methodology. Next thing is to have tools that allow global distributed collaboration. For example, tools where you can manage your project in terms of quality, time, budget, and scope. And you need a tool where you can plan your backlog, like your product backlog, with user stories, with epics. There are many tools out there. If you want specific advice, just leave a comment below the video and I will send you the list of over 150 tools that we have in our organization to work with globally distributed teams, especially in software development projects. So once you have built your platform based on these tools, it requires constant measurement and constant improvement. And you always need to consider changing environments and adjust your plans accordingly. That's all built in Scrum, having the retrospective and having the sprint planning, having the sprint reviews. And during the retrospective, you can review the performance of your team and systematically implement changes that avoid the team from making the same mistakes again and again. Systematically is very important, because if you just talk about failures and changes and improvements but never implement them into your leadership system, in most cases they won't take effect and become reality. So having a systematical approach, for example with checklists on tasks and with task templates, will help your team not to forget doing different things right in the next step. Instead, they can go through checklists and make sure that they fall over the same things again and again to avoid making the same mistakes again and again. What I highly recommend is really specialize in roles. What you don't want is average people working in average roles. For example, you have a developer that should also do project management and that should also do front-end development, back-end development, quality assurance, user experience design, and be a DevOps engineer. That will fail because you have a person that can do everything a little bit instead of doing one thing very well. So you want to define roles so that you can employ or hire people that are experts to fill this role. And you want to have a leadership system that allows them to collaborate globally distributed. And this collaboration requires an understanding of the accountability of each and every person. For example, the DevOps engineer is not your developer. The DevOps engineer is there to maintain and improve the process of deployment in your software development team. So they trigger and measure and adjust the plans and the system to deploy your software from a test environment to a live environment. They also maintain the schedule. Whereas the team, for example, the developer team, is responsible and accountable for the code quality and to implement all requirements that were defined in the product backlog. The product backlog in Scrum is owned by the product manager or by the product owner. The product owner raises requirements as backlog items, and there are definitions of ready, which is a checklist that has all the criteria in place that need to be fulfilled so that this backlog item can be started to be implemented. And there is a definition of ready, that's also a checklist, and this checklist will help the team to understand what exactly needs to be done so that this backlog item is completed. And once the sprint ends, like after 2 weeks, the whole team gives a presentation to the product owner and goes through each and every backlog item, proving that all acceptance criteria and all checklist items in the list of definition of done are fulfilled. And after this presentation, the team sits together and each and everyone can give feedback while the Scrum Master guides them to work cooperative and give constructive feedback instead of destructive feedback, where people are attacked personally and nobody is able to change because it's only the goal to show people they were wrong and failed. That's a culture that is negative and will prevent people from improving. Instead, you want a coaching culture that helps to become aware that different things need to change to reach your goal. Simply, that can be done not by telling, but by asking. Asking will make people aware of what needs to change, what needs to improve, and you have to understand as a Scrum Master that the quality of your question determines the quality of your answers that you get. So Scrum is a perfect tool to help you lead your distributed software development team, and other tools, especially cloud tools, will support global collaboration. When you want to see how you can implement different software projects with virtual teams of global freelancers, and you want to learn more about virtual leadership, subscribe to my channel Flash Up on YouTube and you will get a video once a week with more experiences and with more use cases.